Be a barbecue hero with delicious, ultra-low net-carb Hero Bread, buns, and tortillas. Soft and fluffy, high in fiber, and with 0 grams of sugar, up to 10 grams of protein, coming in at under 100 calories per serving. Oh, and did I mention they taste like their mouth-watering traditional versions? I mean, what's not to love? Use code AH10 for 10% off your first Hero Bread purchase at hero.co. That's AH10 for 10% off at hero.co.
This is
Make It Plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make It Plain.
Get woke.
Ladies and gentlemen, of course, it's one of our favorite times of the week with DailyKos. And actually, it's been a good run for well over a decade. Markos has joined me, founder of DailyKos and Civiqs, to talk about all things political. Of course, DailyKos being the largest online progressive community. But I don't know, this might be it. Markos is now in a bromance with someone else. Now, we've been promoting his new podcast. And if you listen to the latest episode, you'll see what I'm talking about. The Brief. Do check it out. Remember last week? And he's been talking about it more than last week. Remember, he was in Georgia. Now he's in Mississippi. And if you hear the bromance between Markos and Mike Espy, you know, I guess I'm pretty much old hat right now. And Mike had Markos at Mississippi can be purple and can have 2 black senators in the next 5 to 10 years. And my favorite line, Markos, was, you said you're a one-trick pony for Mississippi. And Mike Espy said, well, I'm riding that pony too. So just imagine 2 adult men, bromance, on a pony together. I think this is probably my swan song, so I can't compete with that.
Can you Mark, if there's 2 black senators from Mississippi by the end of the decade, would you complain too much?
No, I wouldn't. I'd be happy with it too. But I warned you. I said you were going to love Mike because Mike does good math. I said Markos is going to be gone, and we are math dudes and wonk dudes. As soon as I hooked him up with Mike, I knew you would be gone. He's great, isn't he?
Oh, he was fantastic. And it was funny because I'm working on getting the Reverend Barber from North Carolina on to talk about North Carolina. And Mike Espy tells me that, he's been talking to Reverend Barber about Mississippi. I'm like, okay, great. So when I have Barber on, I'm going to want to talk about Mississippi instead of North Carolina. Yeah. I am absolutely, I know I've been, Mark, when we remember, right? It's been over 10 years where we were talking about Georgia, right? When I said there's 700,000 unregistered African Americans in Metro Atlanta alone, and that was about 10 years ago. And I kept talking about demographically, it's a purple state, and we talked about Georgia non-stop for the last 10 years, and then wow, suddenly it happens, right? Everything we talked about took 10 years. That's how long it takes to build something on the ground where nothing existed before, no investment, and that's where Mississippi is today. Mississippi is treated. We know how Mississippi is treated just generally, right? It's sort of a backwater state. It's one of the poorest, if not the poorest state in the country. It is last in college degrees in the country. It is the 4th most rural state in the country. People don't realize this, right? You don't think Mississippi rural, right? But it is the 4th most rural state in the country. It only has 1 city with a population higher than 100,000, and that's Jackson, 160,000. Only 2 other cities more than 50,000 people. I mean, this is not a typical state where you're looking at where Democrats are making their gains. They're making their gains in states that are hyper educated, in regions in the suburbs because of, again, education. Education is sort of the key point, right? So you look at Mississippi, you're like, education ain't gonna move those white people. There are not a lot of educated white people in Mississippi. What Mississippi has is a lot of black folks, right? It's 38% black, which is the largest in the country by a lot. I don't think any other state comes close. Then you have about another 3 to 4% of miscellaneous Latinos, Asians, mixed race. So you're looking at around 42%. 42% of the population is sort of just demographically favorable to the Democrats if they were to turn out and vote. Now you look at projections, and projections are having that black vote around 50% of the population in the next decade or so. So you have that, and you think, well, even at 42% people of color, shouldn't be too hard to be competitive, right? You only need about 10% of white people, 10, 15, 20%. I mean, because not every person of color votes Democratic, right? But if you assume that voters of color around 80%, 80, 90% Democratic, you only need about 20% white voters to have a competitive state, right? Problem is, in Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana, the white vote's about 12% Democratic on a good year. 12% Democratic on a good year. And this is going back, and I was looking at John Kerry exit polls, he got about 12%. Obama got about 12%. And like 12% is like sort of the solid, it's where we've been locked in with that white vote. It is, Mark, it's a racist, non-educated, Rush Limbaugh loving, white community. It's not suburban educated whites. It's not cosmopolitan urban whites. There's not much of urban in Mississippi. And so that's what makes it hard.
I admire your word diplomacy, but go ahead. Yeah.
I thought I had actually
say.
I thought I stepped over a line a little bit, but
you're good. You're good.
I was trying to choose my words carefully there. And so it's a challenge. I mean, Democrats haven't put any money there because they haven't felt like putting any money there. The Democrats that are there are black, which already is another strike against them, right? Democrats don't have a history of supporting black communities, just historically, or Latino or anything, right? I mean, even to the last election cycle, they were still obsessed with trying to get back those rural white people they lost. Right. I mean, that's their thinking. And that's because the donors are mostly white. The leadership is mostly white. I mean, this is just standard institutionalized. It's not as much as racism as a lack of really awareness of how race impacts their decisions and how that impacts those communities. So Stacey Abrams obviously shook everything up in Georgia, right? Changed the whole dynamics there and not just built an organization in Fair Fight that registered hundreds of thousands of Georgians, but also helped encourage an ecosystem of organizations that really hyper-targeted various communities. So, for example, there is an organization in Georgia that works with just the South Asian Indian Desi community. And you think, wow, are there that many Indians in Georgia? No, there aren't. But Biden won by 12,000 votes, right? You don't need a lot of Asian voters. You don't need a lot of Indian voters. You don't need a lot of Latinos to collectively add up to a number that was enough to barely win. And today I was doing some math. I hadn't done this before, but David Perdue, who was the incumbent Republican that John Ossoff ousted in the runoff election, he was in the first round. He was at 49.76% of the vote. He was 20,000 votes away from winning outright in the first round. Had he done that, there would be no John Ossoff victory in the runoff election. Mitch McConnell would still be the majority leader in a Republican Senate. So all those votes, right, just squeezing out, like leaving no community behind, taking no vote for granted, making everybody feel like they matter and are part of the equation, change that. And Mark, as I was doing this Georgia math, the differences in the runoff election, the drop off was just dramatic. Keep looking at these black counties, rural counties in southwestern Georgia, and the turnout there was absolutely dramatically. It was actually higher in the runoff election than it was in the general election. And you know why? It's because people finally realized, oh my God, my vote matters. And if I vote, we're going to have a black senator. And holy crap, I'm actually going to go out and vote. And this is just a simple idea of hope. That when you're in a red state and you're a Democrat, you're like, why am I going to waste my time? Nothing's going to change. We're going to lose anyway. And I think that's where Mississippi is there is incredible demographic strength for Democrats in Mississippi, but nobody has spent a dime trying to register it. Nobody has said you matter. You actually are important. If you turn out, we can actually win. We can have somebody like Mike Espy as our senator. And there's so many other great talents in Mississippi that we can work to get elected. And nobody's ever just even asked for their vote. It's not done. So where Mississippi is today is where Georgia was about 10 years ago. This sort of hopeless, we're a red state, nothing's going to change. Racist white people are keeping us down and they're suppressing our vote. And they're still trying. In fact, they're trying right now in Georgia to suppress the vote again. But it's you got to start somewhere, right? And I think finally it's this idea that Mississippi is more and more people are realizing, Mississippi shouldn't be a solidly red state. And maybe it's a slight red lean at best if you look at the demographics, but that means that it can be contested. And Espy only lost by 6 points, in 2018 when he ran for Senate back then, right? This is not a state that is that far away from being competitive. So I know Espy said, 5 to 10 years. I think 10 years is probably realistic, but by the end of this decade, realistic. So let's say 8. We can split the difference.
Y'all got to check out the brief, though. Markos is gone. He's gone. So he's totally in Mississippi. But I love it, and it's appropriate. I have to share this with you. I don't think they'll mind. You were using your words very tactfully. I was on the phone the other day catching up with Jonathan Alter, an old friend. And, he's got his latest book out about Jimmy Carter. And we were talking about a little history. And so as we were talking, he was talking about what Jimmy Carter had to do to win the cracker vote in Georgia, the term you did not use. He's on the phone with me, the cracker vote. And his wife, Emily's in the background. Jonathan, you can't say that anymore. That's a bad word. You can't use that term anymore. And he was like, you can't, but isn't that what it is? He's like, no, you can't use it. So we had a couple of But you were right on point. I guess we can't speak that way anymore. No, this is important. And Mike is addictive. I mean, because when I talked to him during the campaign, he had to talk me down from calling Chuck Schumer and jumping all over him for not sending him money. When the numbers he put on that he explained to me back before November in comparison to the runoff he had in 2018, because he talked about just needing 3% more because he forced Confederate Cindy to that runoff in 2018. And if a few more of those kids who helped bring that flag down had come out and he had a few more dollars, we might be having a different conversation right now. And so I was ready to mobilize people to go and take out Chuck Schumer, but he talked me out of it. But it's attractive, it's sexy, and I think that you're right. It's something we can do. And I want y'all to hear what Markos said too. It's not just African Americans. We saw that in Georgia, the Asian community in Georgia. Now I think total I read, there were 6 figures of voters in the Asian community total that made a difference in Georgia. And that might not, 100,000 people may not seem like much, but look how close those races were. It does make a difference. So same thing in Mississippi. You got, and what Mike said, what he said to both of us too, there's the uneducated population, but then there is the educated population. It was the university students who were able to get help to get that flag taken down right away after George Floyd. And what Mike is saying, if again, folks, this is why it's important. When we go away to college, you can register to vote in most states or change it, do whatever you have to do to vote in that state in which you go to college. And that's what Mike was saying. That can make a difference too. So Ole Miss, Mississippi State, you bring in people, they're getting educated and they have a different mindset.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, this is a good thing. So yeah, we'll be following up on. Yeah.
You talk about the Asian community, and on the brief, we actually had one of the chief organizers of that, trying to get that Asian vote out. And that's about 100,000 votes. And out of 5 million votes, so you look at 100,000 votes. What is that? That's like 2%. Like 2%. How much energy are you going to expend on 2%? If I recall correctly, Democrats won that vote about 70-30. It was about a 40-point victory. So you're talking about a net 40,000 votes out of 5 million cast. Does that matter? Well, Joe Biden won by 12,000 votes. And like I said, David Perdue missed a runoff by 25,000 votes. That was the difference. Now, was it only the Asian community? No, right? It was also the Desi community and the Latino community. And of course, the Black community, which was such a huge block in Georgia. But you needed all these pieces. And so this idea that this traditional idea, and I know, Mike Espy and I complain about it. It's like you come in at the last minute and jump in a couple $1 million, and all you can do is put it on TV ads, which are useless. They're useless. So what you have to do is you have that money. If we could have, $600 million, I think was spent in the Georgia runoff. If you take that, almost all of it on TV ads, you take half of that, $300 million, and you put that on the ground in South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, Mississippi, you actually could build something that would dramatically change the equation, and it would be long lasting, and it would be empowering, not just sending money to TV stations and our corporate overlords and bleeding people who desperately wanted Democrats to win and gave their $20 on Act Blue, and it was just all pissed away, and it's an insult. And we still need to do more organizing in places like Arizona. It's not a blue state. There's a lot of gains to be made there. And then let's not even talk about places like North Dakota with the large Indian reservations that are woefully underperforming voting wise because they've been so, again, neglected and ignored and
right.
suppressed. There's
right.
so much we can do with this money if it was better targeted than TV ads. But nobody got rich. No political consultant got rich on, getting the Desi community in Atlanta organized to vote.
Right. But
nobody made money.
But we see the difference that it made. Absolutely. Moving quickly. Speaking of making money, $15. Interesting politics brewing. Some Democrats beating up Kamala Harris for not overruling the parliamentarian, which I guess she could do, but she's not the problem, is she?
No, she couldn't do it. You actually need a vote. And it needs to be a majority of the Senate. She would have voted yes. I mean, I had no doubt. Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are being, jackasses. And this is the problem with Neera Tanden's nomination as well. It's the problem. I guess we just found out that the Senate is lowering the amount of income somebody can make to get COVID help. That's Joe Manchin, and I don't understand what he thinks he's getting for that. It makes no freaking sense. They're talking about offsetting the $1.9 trillion to get rural broadband. Just add it to the bill. At this point, money's cheap. What's the difference between 1.9 trillion and 1.94 trillion at this point, right? Just freaking add it to the bill if that's what you want. But instead, there's this, I don't know, this sense that somebody's going to give them kudos and brownies and cookies for giving people less help. It makes no sense.
Didn't you speculate that he's thinking about running for governor or something? Is that what this is about?
No, in fact, no, he's done. He's been more of a Democrat. To be totally fair, he's been more of a Democrat this last couple months than he has ever been in his career. He was even, was open to Puerto Rico and DC statehood. So he's and it makes me think he's like done. Like he barely won last time. His state's becoming even more Republican. Like he knows, his chances of survival are not great. So maybe he's just being an a-hole to be an a-hole and no other reason. Now Kyrsten Sinema, she thinks that she represents a red state, and she apparently didn't see what happened, just now with Biden winning the state and Mark Kelly winning it even more comfortably. And the state is moving very quickly in our direction. I mean, it's an accelerating trend. And if she's not careful, in 4 years, she's going to be facing a primary challenge, because right now it's starting to be looking more and more that you don't have to be what she's doing to survive in Arizona anymore. She's not like, I mean, she represented West Virginia. I'm a little more sympathetic. She's actually representing a blue state now. And it's very purple, but she's not, I don't think she's doing herself any favors. So she'll be somebody to watch in the next couple of years. But Manchin, he's so used to being that crank who, the fly in the ointment for so long that maybe he just can't escape it. But there's not a single vote in the world. There's not a single person in West Virginia who's like, I wasn't sure about that Joe Manchin, but now that he's giving people less stuff, I'm happier. And the thing about if somebody makes too much and they get this help, you claw it back in tax season. This is not hard stuff.
West Virginians don't need $15. Speaking of poor, I mean, folk, they ain't, rolling in dough, I don't think, are they?
Yeah, no, you know what? There's this sort of perception that there's a narrative that if you live in a state that's a low-cost state like West Virginia, that you don't need, like it would hurt to actually have the higher minimum wage, that people don't need that. And it's actually not true. I mean, people, the living wage for West Virginia, like to be able to live at a middle class, place, it's like $17, $18 an hour, right? It's not where they're at now. And what most people don't like, if you have a house, you inherited a house, then okay, maybe you're okay, right? But if you don't own your own place, you don't have that built-in wealth, that generational wealth, you are in a bad place, and making less than $15 an hour doesn't really help you keep your head above water. It just doesn't. Even in a place like West Virginia.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I think they're trying to figure out a way to keep it in the bill. I don't know, but hopefully that will happen because we need it.
And one of the problems that we have is that we have this sort of cliff in like March 15th cliff or March 13th when the UI extension benefits expire. So it might have dragged on a little longer. Maybe Biden would have been more likely to fight for it if there was some breathing room to do that. But they're actually under the gun. And so everybody trying to slow it down because, they want broadband this or that. All of it is really dangerous at this stage of the game. And Republicans are doing everything they can to slow things down. Limits space to maneuver.
Are you disappointed about Neera Tanden?
Totally. Republicans are still pretending they're not. I didn't hear what Donald Trump said at CPAC. I didn't. But they're very well versed on every tweet that Neera Tanden tweeted when she wasn't in government or anything like that. So that's incredibly obnoxious. This idea that Joe Manchin, who is now suddenly all about her tone's wrong, when he voted for frickin' Kavanaugh, like don't give me that crap. Like, why pretend? And again, nobody cares about OMB director in West Virginia. Nobody knows what that even is. You're not winning anything by being a jackass about it. And that's the stuff that I don't understand. There's a time to be a jackass when it's aligned with what your constituents want. And I'm willing to like deal with that. So if he wants to be an a-hole on choice, I would not like it. But at least you look at West Virginia and go like, okay, like maybe he doesn't have a choice. But nobody in West Virginia gives a damn.
West Virginia, just for the record, it was Markos who said you all don't even know what an OMB director is. I didn't say that. But yeah, I mean,
most people don't know what an OMB director is. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Us nerds do.
You're right. We do. What is an OMB director? So Mario Cuomo. I'm sure you have.
Not Mario.
What?
Andrew.
I mean, I'm saying Andrew. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the father. Listen to me.
No. Dad's cool. I mean, Dad may have sexually harassed people, but.
Yeah. Well, Andrew. So, what do you think? You have always taken a consistent position in cases like these, and in fairness, you probably would have had Andrew resign for before now. You want him gone anyway. It didn't take this. The list is already, the toll has gotten long. It's a long sheet of paper, like the receipts you get at the CVS. But what do you think about this current situation and should, because, it's not directly the same. May not be an ideal analogy, but again, you have a Neera Tanden, whatever you think about what she said, here she's being held to a standard and there are consequences just for tweets. And then a dude is accused of touching and kissing women and carrying on. And, I don't have to resign. I'm just going to keep it moving. I see a little of that in there. I mean, the two aren't sexual harassment situations, but again, it just seems that a woman, and God forbid a woman be forceful or assertive. I kind of always saw Neera as trying to be, I think she thought she was being comedic too. But, I always felt like a lot of her tweets were less nasty and more. I think she thought she was being somewhat humorous. You know how people joan and play it. That's what I kind of saw her as doing. Now, I know everybody didn't take it like that, and the timing of the jokes may not have been what they were meant to be. But she's got to sit down while Andrew still stands. Yeah.
I mean, to me, Cuomo's not even disputing the facts. So this is not even a question of he said, she said. There's no ambiguity here. There's no interpretation. His whole thing is like, I'm sorry she took it that way, right? It's like there's no other way to take the kind of stuff that he was doing. And of course the floodgates started opening up and you realize that it's systemic behavior, right? This is not a one-off mistake or an errant, offhand comment that was misconstrued. And like he has a history of this, which in this day and age, if you're still behaving that way, it just blows my mind how freaking stupid you have to be to not just rein it in. I mean, it's gonna come out. And to me, like obviously I'm just consistent. Obviously he should resign. And I only have to go back to Al Franken, who I actually admired and loved and respected. And I called for him to resign to show that I've always been consistent. So this is not that I don't like Andrew Cuomo, because I really do not like Andrew Cuomo. And I think he's an a-hole. And I think he gets too much credit for things he doesn't deserve. And even, now that we're finding out that he underreported deaths in retirement homes, COVID deaths, so things didn't look as bad. Like he's just not a good governor. He's not a good person. This, I think, it just kind of pushes it over and I always wish he would have resigned, but now it's like, you really have no choice. And he's going to cling, right? He's going to do what that asshole governor of Virginia did, right? When all the blackface stuff came out and he refused to resign as well. And it's unfortunate that there isn't a mechanism to get him out there more easily, but he should absolutely do it. And I'm actually pretty proud of our party that I haven't seen anybody defend him. Part of it probably is the fact that he's alienated so many people by being such an asshole over the years that there's some schadenfreude going on right now. But he should go, and he should be drummed out of polite society. If he refuses to go, I guess we can't make him leave, but then he shouldn't be taken seriously, and he should be beaten every chance he gets rhetorically.
Because I think there's still, in his mind, some presidential aspirations. No, really, I think there are. And I don't know, this is going to be interesting because then you have to wonder, well, if they investigate him, then what do they do? Are they going to charge him? Probably not. I mean, he might think this will just blow
away. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand what he thinks his outside investigation is supposed to look at, because he's already admitted that everything that these women are claiming actually happened.
Yeah.
Basically. So is he looking for a legalese? Did he cross a specific legal line? Who cares? Like, did he cross an ethical line? Sure, it's obvious. And the fact that he's not clearly seeing it as he was doing it over and over and over again, being creepy and disgusting, sort of shows that he just doesn't have the judgment necessary to be representative of anything, much less a governor of New York.
Yeah. All right. Had the wrong Cuomo, y'all, but I have the right one now. Folks, The Brief. Also, check out DailyKos.com. Check out Civiqs with a Q. This is great. And you should you should have a conversation between Markos and Mike Espy. It's a great conversation, and it will inspire you as well. Thanks, Markos.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Everybody, please wear your mask. We're not out of this yet.
And please don't listen to Greg Abbott. And I mean, just crazy. What is the point? Trump's not in office anymore. Why are you rushing? What are you trying to prove by doing it?
We are 6 weeks away from herd immunity. 6 weeks.
You can't wait 6 weeks. Can't wait.
Just wait 6 weeks.
Can't do it. Also, let me mention to the audience, SelmaJubilee.com. Go and get registered. The Bridge Crossing Jubilee, the largest annual civil rights commemoration, is again this weekend, Bloody Sunday, March from Selma to Montgomery. It is virtual. So go on SelmaJubilee.com and register. Thousands have already registered. You do not want to miss this historic occasion from the comfort of your own space on your laptop, your phone, or what have you. SelmaJubilee.com. Okay.
Mark, that's awesome, and I want to go in person next year.
Yeah, we've been saying that.
Really? Yes.
Well, please join us for the virtual this weekend. You'll enjoy it. We've got something really, really special planned. A lot of great people are going to be there. All your favorite celebrities and favorite celebrity elected officials. Even Speaker Pelosi is going to be there. We're going to have a ball. So, SelmaJubilee.com. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you, Markos.
Thank you.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, subscribe, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.
Nice buns, soft, fluffy, and ultra-low net carbs. Discover Hero Bread, the delicious ultra-low net carb bread with incredible taste and texture. Hero Bread has 0 grams of sugar and is under 100 calories per serving. Plus, high in fiber with 5 to 10 grams of protein per serving. Available on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, and at hero.co. That's HERO.co. Delicious, ultra-low net carb Hero Bread buns and tortillas. Soft and fluffy, high in fiber, and with 0 grams of sugar, up to 10 grams of protein, coming in at under 100 calories. Order today at hero.co and use the code AH10 to get 10% off your first purchase. That's AH10 at hero.co. HERO.co. Order from hero.co now and get 10% off your first purchase with promo code AH10. That's 10% off with code AH10. HERO.co.